Johnny United, plus a lot of other prominent Muslim media personalities, have been saying there are no Muslims in Epstein's files. Let that sink in.
Is that accurate, though?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's not accurate, right?
If you don't call Mohammed bin Salman a Muslim, what if Jeffrey Epstein was a Muslim guy? Do you think the reaction would be different, or it would be same as it is?
Oh, I think, I think if Jeffrey Epstein was a Muslim guy, it would actually be a little bit harder to run in the circles he ran in the first place.
Islam will continue to be triumphant until there have been 12 Khulafa, all of them from Al-Quraysh.
The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. Nor shall the kingdom be left to another people. It shall break in pieces all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, and it shall stand forever.
This is my brother, my executor, and my successor among you, so listen to him and obey.
My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting.
Whoso obeys me obeys God. Whoever disobeys me disobeys God. Whoever disobeys my commander disobeys me.
The Lord said to me, You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, and the ends of the earth your possession.
Two systems of government, two visions for life on earth. Whichever is true changes everything. This is Christ and Khulafa.
Welcome back to Christ and Caliphate. Today we are going to be talking about Christianity, Islam, and the Epsteinfiles as part of our larger conversation about Christianity and Islam and worldview and politics and how that shapes the world we live in today. This week has been pretty explosive with the release of this, and I wanted to discuss some of the commentary on this. So the first thing I wanted to get your guys' reaction to is Johnny United, plus a lot of other prominent Muslim media personalities, have been saying there are no Muslims in Epstein's files. Let that sink in.
Is that accurate, though?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, that's not accurate, right?
If you don't call Mohammed bin Salman a Muslim, of course, and a pretty.
There's no.
I'm pretty sure that I heard that there were a couple in there. Yeah.
There are no Muslims in the Epstein files as long as you count the Muslims in the Epstein files as non-Muslims.
Yeah, there are no Dawa bros, right?
Yeah.
At least that will be very shocking because, I think a big part of it is, jokes apart, is the level at which Epstein was. Right. He belonged to the most elite class of the world. And of course, his relationship will not be, or his connection will not be with you and me, or ordinary people, or Dava Bro from California or New York.
Right. No evangelical pastors in there, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So,
right. Fair enough. Right.
Yeah. And then, his connections were with Mohammed bin Salman, right? His connections were with Dubai's Emirates kings and whatnot, right? So, and there are mentioning of that files, but at the same time, we must acknowledge that being in the file does not mean that you have inherently done something wrong,
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. This is really, really important.
Yeah.
So a lot of these files are coming out right now, and I think people are disappointed that from a legal perspective, these are a big nothing burger for the most part.
Right.
Right. Because there's nothing legally actionable in most of these things. Jeffrey Epstein is the kind of guy who likes being friends with rich people and makes all his money by being connected to a bunch of rich people and being this sort of, amoral broker between people. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you have connections he has in the UAE, and a lot of Saudis were jumping on and being like, look at these immoral Emiratis that are hanging out with Mohammed bin Salman.
I've seen those posts.
With these Emiratis, right? And then then suddenly there's a picture of him with Mohammed bin Salman, right? Which he had framed in his office. Now, again, that says nothing about Mohammed bin Salman, but then it doesn't say anything about like Emiratis who know him either, right? You've got to use a consistent standard
approach here. Yes, and I think big part of it is we all should. I mean, a lot of people, particularly in Islamic world, are seeing him as, oh, he was a Jewish guy. But I think he was beyond any religion. He doesn't had any religion because, no matter what religion you pick, no religion allows such kind of things that what he have done, right? So pinning him on Judaism is absolutely nonsense.
Correct. And we'll like circle back to this because we have some receipts as to sort of the ways he thought about religion and who he interacted with, what he actually believed. But let's have a sort of deeper analysis of his interaction with Islam here. So I could say Imran Khan was named in the Epstein files, right?
Yeah.
But he's named as someone Epstein doesn't like.
Yes. And in Pakistan, it's been sold by his supporters as, oh, he was seen as non-likable person to them, or he doesn't bend to their rules, or he didn't indulge himself in those type of rules. He was seen as a famous person in UK or something like that, but at the same time he was not of their liking. So yeah, I think it resonates with Imran Khan's personality. I admire his personality. Last night I was thinking about it and I said, there are so many bad things about Imran Khan, but one thing I can assure you with guarantee that he is not a corrupt person.
So let's talking about like his interactions. Now, I would say the most before we jump into this whole like covering of the Kaaba thing, I want to read you an interaction with a sort of Emirati businessman who we won't name on here because we're not out to sort of shame and attack people. But it's an almost heartwarming interaction until like the last line. So this is an Emirati businessman says, "Dear Jeffrey, some time ago you asked me, does the Quran say don't take Jews and Christians as friends? Of course it doesn't. Please watch this 5 minutes clip." Then Epstein responds, "He makes a distinction between friends, allies, confidant. Americans do not. They are all categories of friends." Then the Emirati guy responds, "I agree. This is one version of interpretation. The interpretation makes sense to me that this verse came during a battle where some Muslim tribes were collaborating with some Jewish and Christian tribes against their brothers. So the verse came as a warning, but limited to that wartime, as you know. The Quran permits men to marry Christmas and Jews. In fact, one of the Prophet's wives was Jewish and another was Christian. So it doesn't make sense that the Quran will say you can marry them, but you can't be friends to them." Jeffrey Epstein responds, "All I know for sure that is you are one of my most trusted friends in very sense of the word. You have never let me down, not once, not half of once, and I greatly appreciate the time we spend together."
Okay.
Oh, right. This is nice.
That's all moment there.
Yeah. This is exactly the kind of thing we want to see at Al-Maida events, right? However, the closing line from the businessman is, "Thank you, my friend. I'm off to sample a fresh 100% female Russian at my yacht."
Well, I want to throw up on it.
So this kind of thing is obviously gross, but it's not like inherently incriminating either, right? It might be, but
it's certainly not a good look, right?
No, it's
not a good look.
But it's also not like inherently surprising. It's like, oh, I thought rich Arab guys with yachts were like super chaste monogamists, right? Right. No. This isn't the thing. I think if you're in America, in most parts of the world, what's coming out in these files are not telling you anything that you don't, already know.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is actually confirming, like some of the stuff on Bill Gates was especially troubling. There's that's a very bad thing for him, right? Prince Andrew is another one.
Right.
Lawrence Summers, the president of Harvard and worked for Google AI and had all these other roles in the Obama administration and everything else like that. Those are all very, very bad looks for those guys. People knew, but more details makes it worse.
But listen, the fact that the fact that this is what our elite culture looks like is not surprising, because what our culture has done is pair higher education with sexual promiscuity.
Right.
Right. That's what we're indoctrinating people into in America, right?
Yeah.
Like on a cultural level,
Right.
we send people away from their families to kind of get all their training and education.
Right.
And in that, what's been celebrated culturally is promiscuity and sort of free sexual relationships, right?
Yep.
So can we be surprised that the most elite levels of our society just looks like that, but with more money? I'd be surprised if it was anything else.
Right. You know, it's good that you mentioned that, because I think a lot of this is how dare he, but like you still have people trying to normalize pedophilia legally. They're trying to make it legal. They're trying to make it legal in California. They're trying to make it legal in, you know, they're trying to normalize it in psychological circles. They're trying to do this and they're trying to do that. You know, in this case, it's not inherent pedophilia because, I mean, it still is, but it's like more human trafficking, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, the point is, it's awful, right? But I'm going to echo what you said, right? Like, there are a lot of people who went along with it because their view of like sexuality is really a kind of promiscuous, anything goes. You know, you have to find yourself within your sexuality, and you have to express yourself sexually in certain ways. And there's really nothing wrong with the way that you know what I mean? So, and then now, you know, when something like this happens, which is, I mean, let's be honest, it is particularly egregious, right? Like this is really bad. But, you know, now like people are finding outrage. And I think the other thing that's really bad that's happening is people are circling their wagons around, you know, their candidate or their person or whatever, you know.
So
yeah, I would say something here. And I think the whole problem lies with this notion that there is inherent sin. It is not tied to, you know, if you get so educated, you will come out of it and you will be a very nice human being with all the good moral values and whatnot. And we have seen in this that most of those people are highly educated, you know, sophisticated and whatnot. But the inherent sin, when there is no accountability, when they think themselves or see themselves above and beyond any measures of accountability, then this inherent sin nature kicks back. And then that's where it all started looking very, very shady. And I'm very surprised because, you know, I always admired people with higher level of intellect and education, because somehow education is tied to intellect. But if your intellect does not ban you or does not stop you from doing such a things, then I think you should throw your intellect somewhere in the Mediterranean Ocean.
right. And so
Keep it out of my ocean.
what I would say this. So what I would say is that if Muslims want to look at the West and say you have an immorality problem here in the West, I 100% agree with you.
I don't agree with you.
Well, okay, but let me finish.
Okay.
It's like, you're not wrong about the West, you're just wrong about yourselves. Right. So if you want to look at like Jeffrey Epstein and say this is because he's Jewish, you're out of your minds.
Yeah.
This is because he's a rich man surrounded by wealth who thinks that his wealth and success puts him above everyone else. And that is a universal human problem that transcends culture, it transcends upbringing, it transcends everything else, right?
Value out there.
So we can't we cannot
blame Judaism for his actions. It's very simple.
Listen, you know, being Jewish is an ethnicity, right? And, you know, Jewish people commit crimes every day, right?
Yeah.
And Jewish people do good things every day.
Agreed.
right? And Arab people do good things every day, and Arab people commit crimes every day, right? So, you know, it's it I think it's when people look for this, right, in situations like this, my like hunch is that first of all, they're looking for a scapegoat, right? They're looking for something to blame. Okay? Because it's clear on a subconscious level and on a conscious level that society has failed. Right? Something allowed this to go on. This is symptomatic of a bigger problem. It's also something that people look at and they say, well, if I can find a scapegoat in that other person, I don't have to take uncomfortable looks at myself. Right?
Yeah.
So I think the hard part, like particularly as Christians, right? You're supposed to take a hard look at yourself.
Yeah.
You're supposed to examine yourself in light of the scriptures, right? And then you're supposed to have people in your life who hold you accountable. And ultimately, you're supposed to be close enough with the Lord so that you can hear his voice and feel convicted of sin. So when you stop being convicted of sin, you know, and you start like compromising and doing all these other things, as a Christian, I'm not talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not talking about, you know,
Mohammed bin Salman.
Mohammed bin Salman. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about, you know, specifically as a Christian, you're supposed to, you know, be circumspect. You're supposed to have a level of holiness in your life, right? You're supposed to be walking with God in righteousness. So the hard part is like and also as a Christian, you're also supposed to understand you're going to fall short of that. And that's where God's grace comes in. Right. So you're not walking around under this heavy condemnation when you sin. You're supposed to repent of your sin and actively work towards being holy. But in the world at large, right, it's kind of like, well, instead of taking that hard look at yourself, let's just justify certain behaviors and let's make them okay.
Right. And the thing is, the wealthier and more successful you become, the easier it is to justify those things. But that doesn't mean you're better because you are broke. Given the same opportunities that Jeffrey Epstein had, that Bill Gates had, that the people surrounding Epstein had, you're not inherently better without some form of divine intervention keeping you from that. And this is the important thing, right? If you're looking at Epstein and his confidence, what you're looking at is privileged people allowed to run away with their desire and ambition. And all those ingredients are in you too. And that's why you need God in your life. That's why you need Jesus. That's why Jesus had to die for people, because that same evil that is in Jeffrey Epstein is in all of us too. And we have to walk very, very carefully so as not to fall into that darkness ourselves. So changing gears here, I want to talk about something very specific as it draws outrage in the Islamic world.
I mean, very weird. Yeah, go ahead.
Very specific and very weird. So, so there's a huge controversy because a Saudi woman living in the UAE sent Jeffrey Epstein like 3 pieces of the kiswa. Is that how it's pronounced?
Yes.
The kiswa, which is a covering for the Kaaba, which is the most holy site in Islam. And she sent it to Jeffrey Epstein as a gift. And here is the email, which I got directly from the Department of Justice website on this. So the source is solid. And this is the email. Here is the attachment. By the way, the black piece was touched by minimum 10 million Muslims of different denominations, Sunni, Shia, and others. They walk around the Kaaba 7 rounds, and everyone tries as much as they can to touch it, and they kept their prayers, wishes, tears, and hopes on this piece, hoping that after all that, their prayers will be accepted. So if I can attempt to make a steel man of Aziza al-Ahmadi here, is that what is really clear from studying Jeffrey Epstein is he's clearly a very charming man, and he's well connected, and he's nice, and he's generous, and he's friendly. It's hard not to make friends with someone like that if you come into contact with them. And he's also somebody who's very curious as well. So clearly from other emails we've seen from him, he's asking people questions about religion. So I would actually make the argument that this is probably like a form of dahwa for her. She sees this guy that she's trying to win over to her way of thinking. And when she gives her this kiswa from the Kaaba, the way she describes it is something, beautiful and transcendent. It almost sort of reads like an invitation for Jeffrey Epstein to enter into that beauty and transcendence with her.
Yeah, that's
I actually, when I heard the story, that's what I thought. I thought that would be like a great way.
But given that she did not know what Jeffrey Epstein is.
Oh yeah, right. She didn't know.
Okay.
But even if she did, right, there's still a sense that like Islam believes that everything you do before you're Muslim is forgiven, right? So if you're a Muslim and you're friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and he's really nice to you, and you're aware of his past, what you would want for him, presumably, is for him to convert to Islam, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think that's true with like Christianity too.
Yes, correct. And in fact, there's an instance of the one evangelical Christian that's named in the files in any sense, as far as I can tell, is his lawyer. I forget the first name. The last name is Starr, though, and I think he crossed some lines in his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, but I think it's a natural thing that you want to see what's best for somebody, especially if that person is like personally nice to you. Like, obviously, I won't name any names on the podcast, but we've had friends who are shady.
Sure.
Right. We've had friends who've done some like really bad things to women, and we never enable those things. But if that person emailed me, asked to get coffee and talk about life, I would 100% accept that invitation, because my association with somebody shady does not automatically make me shady.
Unless you are caught in an act, right? If you're like, for example, the Prince of England,
right?
His pictures, the way some of the pictures circulating on internet. I mean, you can't make this claim for him.
Correct, exactly. Like, he is a direct participant in all of Epstein's immorality, in a way that is undeniable at this point, which is why he's suffering more consequences for this than a lot of people like, say, Bill Clinton are, right? Because there's insinuations, there's speculation, but you can't like nail them on anything.
Just because you had a picture with Jeffrey Epstein does not make you inadequately evil, as we talked about it. And similar to the Donald Trump as well, if there is nothing against Donald Trump as far as his dirty businesses with Epstein is concerned, then I think nobody should be pointing fingers at Donald Trump, but just
also degrees of it. I mean, apparently most of the bad stuff happened on the island. And if you were a frequent visitor of the island, you were more likely to be, you were more likely to be a partaker in that evil. And if you weren't, we're in Seattle, the Super Bowl's this weekend, and former Seattle quarterback Russell Wilson was named in the Epsteinfiles 42 times, but he was trying to buy a jet. So, right. And I think that the thing that you have to keep in mind is that people like Jeffrey Epstein, they're predators, right? Predators. He's an epic predator, right? And, predators, and he's also got crazy sexual deviancy, right? So people in that combination of things, and then on top of that, add in the wealth, right? Add in the fact that he's, a billionaire. He's got so much money. And just looks like a fun guy, like you were saying. They like to put themselves next to people in power, people of influence. They like to be the guy in the picture with Mohammed bin Salman, right? They like to be the guy in the picture with, whoever. And you know, as evangelical Christians, right? Like if we had the opportunity to meet with somebody like that, not knowing what he did, you know, or maybe even being aware, I think our mindset is going to be there's the possibility that God can redeem that person.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Turn them from sin, you know? And if it was me and I had an opportunity to meet with him, I mean, I wouldn't fly to the island, you know? It would be like nice and public.
Yeah.
The top of the Space Needle with 50 of my best friends watching. But you know what I mean? Like
50% accountable.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, no, you know, we fist bumped. We didn't even shake hands. So, you know.
So the balance here is Jude 1:23. Save others by snatching them out of the fire. To others show mercy with fear, hating even the garment stained by the flesh. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that it's hard to like get across to people. Okay, you know. A friend of mine showed me a video of Hitler boxing Epstein, right? Like an AI video of Hitler, and everybody's in the crowd watching this thing. And at the end of the day, you know, it's a UFC fight and Hitler is just pummeling Epstein, and, you know, the crowd goes wild, right? Because, you know, those are the two of the most awful people you can bring to mind. And then you can have them in a boxing match. But the truth is they're both awful, right? They're both awful people. They're both capable of awful things.
Competing for the title.
And how many people have said, okay, well, if you could go back in time, you know, would you kill, sorry, not kill, but, you know, you would try to stop Hitler from being Hitler, right? Like by any means possible to try and save all those lives. And what I'm saying is that the grace of God can stop people from doing those things. So as a Christian, you're like, I want to position myself where I can reach as many people, you know, I don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know what their sins are. I don't know what their secret sins are. Only God knows. But I know that they need grace, right? I know that they need God. I know that they need a relationship with Jesus. And I know that only he can turn them from their sin and redeem their sin. That doesn't mean the consequences go away, right? Like that doesn't mean that the legal action or whatever.
Okay, now I have an assumption, which is a little bit off topic, but I think I need to get your guys' input on it. What if Jeffrey Epstein was a Muslim guy? Do you think the reaction would be different or it would be same as it is?
Oh, I think I think if Jeffrey Epstein was a Muslim guy, it would actually be a little bit harder to run in the circles he ran in the first place. I think like being like that in sort of American high society would be not impossible, it would be harder.
But don't you think that people will go after Islam or Islamophobic thoughts would more prevail if it was?
Yeah, for sure. They would try and tie the sexual deviancy directly to Islamic teaching.
I mean,
for sure.
Sure, but there would be a certain percentage of people, particularly in today's climate, like on the far left, who are like, yeah, but that's our culture, you know, like, and that's not true. You know, but I know people would point to like passages in the Qur'an where, you know, Muhammad married a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Hadith, that's in the Qur'an, that's in the Hadith.
Hadith.
We can throw that under the bus.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like.
Yeah, that also correction on 9-year. That's a very, very thought-provoking and need a lot of research. You know, people use this since you just talked about it. So. Yeah. I had a chance to clear.
It's a perception,
you know,
or not. It's true.
Yeah,
right, and it's depending on which sources you trust.
Absolutely.
It's not monolithic.
Well, I'm not trying to. That's not the point that I'm trying to make.
Oh yeah.
What I'm trying to make is that, you know,
they'll tie the reference
to it for good or for better or for worse.
Yeah, right? And I think as
I've actually seen the worst part. Like there's an Instagram page I follow where it's an ape. And the ape is uncensored, and then somebody is saying like, there's no, you know, there are no Muslims in the Epstein file, and the ape goes, because you would have made him a prophet, right? And that's horrible to say, You know, like if my mom saw that, I'd be ashamed.
Yeah.
Like that my mom had to see that. But the point is, you know, there are people out there thinking it.
Yeah, and as we said in the show earlier, that we see Epstein as human being, as his actions, right, and not tie it to any religion. And I think on this show, if he was a Muslim too, we would not tie him to Islam directly and see him.
No.
But
No, I mean, that's not Islam,
yeah,
right?
and I think
it's not Judaism. It's not Christianity.
yeah, at the end of the day, religion
It's
itself.
disgusting.
Yeah, religion,
Right?
any religion you pick,
Yeah.
it doesn't allow what Jeffrey Epstein did. No religion in its right.
No society even
Yes.
does that, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't matter if it was Saudi Arabia, it wouldn't matter if it was America,
Right.
it wouldn't matter if it's Israel. These are things that happen behind closed doors because in general, most people would disapprove of it.
Right.
It's actually really funny because you say this point, right? The building on the island, there's a building on the island, and everyone is pointing the finger at the other person about what the origin of this building is. Okay. It's a small building, and some people are saying it's modeled after Al-Aqsa, right? And then there are other people who are looking at it saying, well, it's modeled after like an ancient synagogue, right? And then there are other people who are pointing at it saying, well, it's modeled after a church, right? Like old group, like,
Yeah.
you know, and the point is, like, who knows, you know, why a pervert does anything, right?
Right.
So like I've been like examining his kind of back and forth between people, and interestingly, he's talking. This is in an email exchange with Noam Chomsky, and it kind of think gives us some insight into how Jeffrey Epstein sees the world, right? So he's talking about how Jeffrey Epstein says, what I'm suggesting is what the term culture means. It's the same as what consciousness means. Culture can be described as Russell did for consciousness. The physics and math envy habit of trying to measure things. We experience culture in stubborn, transmitted, localized, contains memories, boundaries, dictum, manifests itself in different ways, but doesn't have separate existence. It is like consciousness, a human construct, no more, no less. And then, so he's basically saying, you know, culture is what we make of it. It's all relative, basically. And then Noam Chomsky responds to saying, from the point of view of a jihadi, clan, evangelical Christian, my ultra-Orthodox grandfather, it's the rest of the world that's crazy. So basically, you know, these two guys have this moral looseness way of looking at the world. And they're lumping in jihadi Muslims, evangelical Christians, and Orthodox Jews as people who are against this sort of relativistic way of looking at the world, right? So the way Jeffrey Epstein thinks about the world is he's curious, he's interested in religion, he's interested in spirituality. There's lots of email exchanges with a guy called Deepak Chopra, who's sort of a new age guru. But he's not an atheist. He makes fun of atheists, but he believes in this sort of transcendent, no religion has the right answer.
Yeah.
And there's some sort of metaphysical spiritual truth at the top of the universe, and that he himself is special, which incidentally is about the same as the worldview of the average Seattleite.
Well, that's a big claim, James. I would not back that. I would say that
No, I would totally back that.
yeah, it's you guys. Anyway.
Again, I'm not saying that the average Seattleite is engaging in the things that
Right.
Jeffrey Epstein is engaging in.
Right.
But their view of like, you know, no one religion can have the right truth, and this is all about the universe and spirituality and something cosmic. It's new age. Jeffrey Epstein had a sort of quasi new age worldview, and that is the worldview that most Seattleites have. They're not atheists, they're not Christians, they're not Muslims. They're part of a sort of new age paradigm, right? Whenever anybody talks about vibes, anyone talks about the universe, that's the kind of thing that they're kind of connected to.
Well, I heard, I'm not sure, and I need you guys' input. Somebody was saying that he was a devil worshiper, or he had a temple of devil and he worshipped.
Oh, it's that building. There's like on that building that everyone is pointing their finger at, saying it belongs to that religion or is influenced by that religion. There's like, I think there's like a statue of Moloch
Yeah.
like holding something.
Very, very plausibly.
Yeah.
So, again, that's all possible. But in general, the gap between the sort of New Age worldview and devil worship is actually a very, very small gap.
Yeah, and I would say this, James, and it's very important for everyone around here, around anywhere in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, it doesn't matter where it is. You know, when I came to the United States, I was a big advocate of freedom, personal freedom. But very soon I realized that what are the limits of freedom? How far we can go with our inherent freedom, right? And somehow I think I count myself as a person with a good intellect, not very high intellect. And I come to realize that at the end of that, freedom is chaos. Right. And what we saw with what Jeffrey Epstein did and a lot of his liking was utter chaos. That's what they did. And that's the ultimate game of freedom. If you allow yourself to and do not hold yourself accountable to any standard of life. I'm not saying just Christianity. You can be a righteous person just believing in Islam, or you can be a righteous person believing in Hinduism or according to their standards. Right. So point is, if you do not hold yourself accountable to anything, then that road is very slippery slope, right? You keep slipping and you will end up doing some things. And do you think that Jeffrey Epstein consider himself a very evil person when he was doing all these acts?
No, I would think he's considered himself somebody who's special and above good and evil, right? He's an enlightened one.
Yeah,
and this
justifications.
Right. And so this is the thing. This is whether he was an actual devil worshiper or not. This is the way the devil operates, right? The devil is somebody who tells you you're special, you're unique, the rules do not apply to you, you're better than everyone else, because that's who Satan is, right? That's what it means to be Satan, and he basically invites everyone into that same thing with him. So anytime that you're overcome with pride, every time that you start thinking, okay, that applies to everyone else, it doesn't apply to me, right? In Deuteronomy 17, there's a passage for Israel's kings, and it says he must read from the Torah every day of his life, so that he may learn to do what.
His own copy of it.
Right, he has to write his own copy, and he read it in all the days of his life, so that he may know what the Lord commands, but also that his head may not be lifted up above his brothers.
Right.
So anytime you're successful and exceptional, the devil's voice is there for you, saying, "Hey, you're better than them."
Mm-hmm.
Sure, normal people need those rules, but not you.
I think that the end of hyper-intellectualism can definitely, not for all of them, but it's not a blanket statement, but it can definitely be like, I'm personally superior, right? Success can do the same thing. You know,
Power can do
the same thing, right? And unfortunately, all of those things, the unholy trinity of money, power, and fame, right? Mm-hmm. Like those things can be very corrupting.
Yep.
And without, having some kind of guardrail to keep you on like a straight and narrow path, right? Like you can morally make anything okay,
Right.
And I think that another thing that needs to be addressed is that human beings have blind spots. Each human being has a blind spot. I do things that are bad and I need them pointed out to me, right? Like particularly in dealing with my children, sometimes I get too angry, right? And I have a wife who will point those things out to me and hold me accountable. When you don't have that in your life and you operate in the echo chamber of success, echo chamber of power or whatever, you have people afraid to tell you, or you have people who, he was not alone, right? Like he had that Maxwell woman with him, and she was facilitating it, and he had a whole bunch of people who knew, and they were all like mutually egging each other on to see how deep they could get away with this.
So guys, we gotta wrap this up. But what I would say to you is the Epsteinfiles teaches a great deal. But if your reaction to that is to go and tear down other people and accuse people of things without real proof because of their association, that is the wrong reaction. People who can be prosecuted should be prosecuted. But if this is telling you that there's a big conspiracy of bad people out there somewhere, then you're out of your mind. The problem that we have to address is in each and every human heart. And I would argue that the best thing you can do from the Epstein files is take this for a moment of self-reflection, because you don't have the power to prosecute anybody. You don't have the power to put anyone in jail. You know, if you do, that's fine. You pursue those options. But you, the person sitting at home on the internet, just has the ability to get outraged about these things when it comes to other people. Instead, use this as an opportunity for reflection, so that and that's what you can do something about, right? You can help ensure that you don't do these things to other people and build a world where the Jeffrey Epsteins are not allowed to get away with things. Thank you for listening to Christ and Caliphate. We'll be back next time.